Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Bet365. My name is Dave Guadrelli. I'm joined by Harmdal. It's an early show today, folks. It's an early morning convo. I should have said good morning, Canucks fans. We've got some of our regular viewers in the YouTube live chat right now. I know we'll have a lot on podcast as we normally do, which is great, but the live show is happening this morning. The reason for that is that Canucks development camp kicks off today. First session is at 1:30 out at UBC, and I'm going to make it. I'm going to get out there and go to dev camp. So I wanted to make sure we did an early show today. We had to get it out of the way early, and plus it's free agency tomorrow. We're going to have a lot of different stuff. So a bit of a fluid schedule this week, but some stuff to talk about. Obviously, you heard me alongside Dave Hall on Saturday talking about the Canucks draft. But today, I really want to talk more about the lack of action that the Canucks have done in the lead up to July 1st. And again, I want to go back on what Jim Rutherford said at end of media press conference. Now, one thing he said that I think it's important to make this distinction early is we may get most of our work done before July 1st. He didn't say we're for sure getting all of our work done before July 1st. So I want to make sure I make that distinction. He said we may get it done before July 1st. And then whatever cap space we have left over, we'll see what we can do there. That was what he said. Now, they haven't done anything, so that's why he said may. One thing he did seem pretty definitive about, though, Harmon, was that they were going to get 3 forwards. 2 or 3 forwards. Impact forwards, it seemed like they were talking about. By my count, they've got 1 in Evander Kane, and some people don't even view him as an impact forward. By my count, it's 1.
Yeah, the problem is the whole league is kind of stuck in the spot, right? Outside of Peterka and Dobson, what real difference makers have actually moved? Most teams, I would say, that had ambition to meaningfully improve, to land a top 6 forward, to land that impact top 4 defenseman, haven't gotten their shopping done. There are so many teams sitting on the sidelines with assets, with cap space that are ready to spend, but they haven't been able to get their work done. Eric Tulsky, who of course is the GM of the Hurricanes, was talking about this exact dynamic surrounding the trade market just after the draft, and the Hurricanes are so well positioned to be as aggressive as anybody. They have oodles and oodles of cap space because of Burns coming off the books, Orlov coming off the books. Plus, they have the extra first-round picks from the Mikko Rantanen trade, but they haven't been able to get what they want done, and they have multiple needs. For them, it's they need a top-pair defenseman to play with Jacob Slavin. They want to add that elite play-driving winger, and they could also arguably use a second-line center upgrade. They haven't been able to get anything done on the trade market. So I think most of the league is stuck in this spot. I don't think it's a Canucks-specific problem that we're looking at. And the fact that the Canucks have already gotten 1 player checked off in Evander Kane, who, of course, isn't as high-end as you're ideally looking for, they've at least got 1 move done. So this isn't to fully excuse management and give them a break. But the point being, it's not as if everybody else has gotten their work done and the Canucks haven't.
That's fair. That's very fair. That's a fair way to look at it. So where do they go from here? Where's the pivot point from here? Because they haven't got their work done, and they're heading into July 1st. And we're going to talk about the Mitch Marner stuff. It looks like he's unavailable. It looks like Pius Suter is the second best center available on the market. If they don't want Pius Suter at $4.5 million, Mikael Granlund's the only other guy. And I've made my thoughts about Mikael Granlund here. I don't think that's going to be I don't think Mikael Granlund's a good fit for the Canucks. Let's put it that way. Aside from the fact that maybe he wants to come to Vancouver, I don't think he's a good fit stylistically for this team. Do you disagree with that?
No, I think Granlund is primed to get overpaid on his next contract. He's at the age when you expect players to significantly drop off in terms of their production. And again, I look at his numbers in San Jose and think that was largely about opportunity. And yeah, he performed well for Dallas as a rental, but you look at the underlying numbers, the Stars were pretty heavily outshot and outchanced during Granlund's minutes, and he was benefiting from a bit of a PDO bender. So with all those dynamics in mind, and especially Granlund being a 5'10" player at that, and him sort of shifting between wing and center, as opposed to, he spent the last 10 years definitively at the center ice position. Even when he was in Minnesota, he spent most of that time in on the wing as opposed to center. So with all those things in mind, if they overpay for Granland, I mean, yeah, he'd help the team, but that contract would really worry me.
Yeah, and again, I'm gonna at the end of the show, we're gonna do our predictions for what the Canucks do between the time we finish this show and into tomorrow. And right there, number one on my list is they signed Mikael Granlund, to a 4-year deal at $6 million annually. And I think it might even cost more than that to get him to come here. That's what's scary. But the reason I kind of throw out $6 million is we wrote today at Canucks Army just how much cap space the Canucks have heading into tomorrow. The answer is 6.5 million. So it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how they deal with that and how they maneuver that, because really, like, that's one player like that's probably, maybe, actually, I don't want to say probably, that might be enough to get you Mikael Granlund. But when there's one center available on the market and then P.S. Suter is number 2, like, that number could get stupid. That number could get higher than that. That number could get way higher than that. So again, that could be 2 players, 2 like mid-ish players. Maybe you clear out some cap space, but it's $6.575 million is what they have heading in tomorrow. And man, oh man, I could see them just using it on Mikael Granlund. But even with that, like, they still have holes that they're going to have to fill. So it's going to be interesting how they play it. But that's my prediction, is that they're going to do that tomorrow.
Well, there are other options. They're not great, but for instance, if you move a contract out, now could you afford, let's say, Drouin and Roslovic, right? Drouin as your top 6 winger, and his production the last couple of years have been pretty good in Colorado. Now, mind you, he's obviously had the opportunity to play with McKinnon for large stretches of that. But as far as another sort of middle 6 winger, I don't love the option, but it might not be. Like, Drouin hasn't put himself in a position where he's going to land a massive contract the way Granlund has. And his production is high enough to where, all right, that could be somewhat reasonable. Jack Roslovic as well, if you're looking for a player that can play center and wing. Canucks have reportedly liked him in the past. He'd be relatively economical. Again, I don't, like, neither one of those names excites me.
More, I like that way more than Granlund.
Exactly. Like, that's the point, is I like it way more than the alternative options.
All right.
My bigger concern in looking at this offseason is I'm just increasingly concerned that this team is going to be stuck in the mushy middle, especially when you look at what's happened around them as far as some of their competitors getting significantly better. Utah's already landed Peterka, one of the few teams that's been able to acquire a true difference maker. Vegas is rumored to be the landing spot for Mitch Marner. So the teams around you, especially in the case of Utah, who's going to be a competitor for a wildcard spot, and then even Vegas from the perspective of not just trying to squeak into the playoffs, but over the next couple of years, you want to be a team that can actually make some noise and, you know, win a round or two, go on a deep run. We're looking at this Vegas team as, okay, they're aging, they could use a bit of a spark, and now they're reportedly in a position to land Marner, who, for all his playoff sort of question marks, is a 100-point winger, is a true superstar. And I've given this theory before. I actually think he could perform better in the playoffs than he has in Toronto, now that he's away from that spotlight and all that sort of narrative and all that media pressure, especially when you look at Marner was pretty clutch for them, for Team Canada at the Four Nations. And that was just as pressure packed as the Stanley Cup playoffs usually are. So, and
you were bringing up Vegas as the example team too. You're like, what if he goes to like a Vegas? You were using them as the example team.
I always thought Vegas
months ago.
I always thought Vegas or LA made so much sense. You go to a contending team, quiet media market. You're in the States. You're not going to have that eye on you. And they're amazing teams where he's not going to have to single-handedly in Vegas drive the bus all by himself. You still got Eichel there. You still got Stone there. You've still got other star talent that can help sort of tug on the rope as well. So if he goes there, I mean, of course, it's not good news if Mitch Marner is going to a Pacific Division team. And even when I look at where the Canucks are positioned right now, would we agree that the best case scenario for them is at this point landing, let's say, a Marco Rossi, the best case scenario?
I think so.
Okay, so then let's step back. You look at this team for next season, the forward group specifically. You get Marco Rossi in, you get Evander Kane in, but then Besser and Suter likely out. Has your forward group significantly improved on paper, or is that
No,
mostly just a wash?
no. And you know what? You know what the reason for this is, Harm? Everybody misjudged what this was going to look like what this offseason was going to look like. If they knew that Suter was going to be the second best free agent center available on July 1, they probably would have extended him at $3 million when they could have a year ago or whatever that was. They would have done that. And if they knew what the market for Brock Besser would end up looking like as well. But again, I don't really say like, oh, poor Canucks. No one could have seen this coming. Like, it was always a bit of a weird decision to walk Brock Besser to free agency the way that they chose to. It was always a bit of a head scratcher to get Drew O'Connor, to get all this other work done like that, and not get Brock Besser done. A guy who's been loyal to your team, especially when you see, them, or we're here, I should say, struggling to get free agents in. Actually, Jim Rutherford said that as well. Most people don't want to come here. Trades as well being difficult. When you see that, and you see that they're reportedly targeting all these guys that want to be Canucks, Evander Kane, Bowen Byram, all these guys that want to be Canucks, Thatcher Demko, Connor Garland. We haven't even talked about that yet. We're going to get to that. When you hear them wanting to go after all these guys that want to be Canucks now, it's like you kind of missed the boat with Brock Besser, because I know Brock Besser feels disrespected. Like, this guy's hitting free agency, even though the Canucks have gone back at him. I shouldn't say for sure, but I think Brock Besser's hitting free agency, and I know he feels a little bit disrespected by everything that's happened.
Yeah, I don't like the way the Canucks handled it, especially Allvin's comments after the trade deadline were essentially saying, you wouldn't believe the offers, essentially saying nobody wanted Brock.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna necessarily criticize them for, hey, we don't want to pay Brock Besser $8 million on a long-term deal. That sure. I won't fault them for, especially because they don't have JT Miller anymore. Who's going to be the centerman that he can actually thrive with and have a lot of success with?
Connor McDavid, apparently.
I mean, geez, can you imagine if Besser feels so slighted that he takes a discount to go to Edmonton and is like, I'm just going to sign a short-term deal to boost my value to
score 50 goals a year
and then get paid, and especially to play on a team that has a legit shot to win a Stanley Cup and a divisional rival to really stuff it down the Canucks throat, like that would suck.
So for those that are just hearing Oilers Besser for the first time, that's just a rumor going around right now. David Staples wrote something about it in the Edmonton Journal as well. The rumor is that Brock might take less money than he could get on the open market to go to a winner, that winner being the Edmonton Oilers. Obviously, Brock said, Vancouver's always going to be home. His girlfriend's from here. All that stuff he said at the end of season Mediaville. Like, even if he leaves the Canucks, he's still going to be coming back to Vancouver. It's not one of these deals where it's like, okay, I'm gone, I'm never coming back. He even, I think, didn't he say Vancouver will always be home?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, exactly. So Canucks free agency preview here on Canucks Conversation, and it's pretty damn bleak. like seriously, it's pretty damn bleak. So I do want to say this though. They have some stuff that's coming down the pipe right now, and I wanted to get this. Where did it go? Okay, couple things, Harm. Since we've said hello, Canucks fans, the Minnesota Wild have traded for Vladimir Terasenko from the Detroit Red Wings for future considerations. Matias Maccelli, I like Matias Maccelli a lot. He is being traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs from the Utah Mammoth, and Max Sassin gets a 1-year deal. And it's a one-way deal. So shout out to Max Sassin. Let's focus on that. Max Sassin, friend of the show, got the Canucks conversation bump. Dude's getting a one-way deal. I'm very happy to hear that. Congratulations to Max Sassin. That's awesome. For those that don't know, a one-way deal means that Max gets paid, or any player for that matter. A one-way deal means that the player gets paid the same amount, no matter if they're in the NHL or the AHL. That's a really big deal for a player like Max Sassin.
He earned it, and he's absolutely going to be in the conversation to earn a depth forward role. We know that his speed at the NHL level has been a standout quality. There have been moments where, all right, on the forecheck, hunting down loose pucks, he's able to make an impact, and even a couple of flashes where, all right, on an offensive zone entry, he'll perform a little cutback, show some poise, and in not just getting rid of the puck, but actually looking for a play, which is nice to see from a fourth liner. It is ultimately going to be still a bit of an uphill battle for him to carve out an everyday NHL role. He's going to have to translate some of his sort of elite defensive play at the AHL level to, can you be that defensive specialist in the NHL? Are you going to be a penalty killer? Can you be lead on faceoffs? Can you be trusted for a lot of D-zone starts? I think the biggest challenge for Sassin is going to be, what exactly is your identity at the NHL level? Because at the AHL level, he puts up a lot of offense. He's an all-around workhorse, an all-around driver. At the NHL level, what's your identity? That's always the challenge for these tweeners, is what's the reason for Adam Foote to look at you and go, I can't take this guy out of the lineup outside of just your speed, right? Especially since he's a little bit undersized for typical fourth line standards as well, and he's not going to necessarily be a crash and bang energy, just like physical wrecking ball. That's going to be the next question for him, and he'll be part of that crowded competition for those final forward spots.
These are the Sassin update was courtesy of Dollywall, and so are these two. 2-year deal for Arshdeep Bains coming down the pipe. And a new deal for Ratu as well. No surprise, obviously, especially with those two. And really no surprise with Max. I think the good news is that Max is getting a one-way deal. Like that's a really big deal. That's really cool. Really happy to hear that. Okay, let's get to go on.
It's crazy to me, by the way, that the Wild took on Terasenko.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Did they take on the full freight of his cap hit? He was bad in Detroit last year.
I haven't heard anything about retention. It's for future considerations. I don't think you are retaining on a future consideration. So yeah, I would think they're taking the full $4.75 million cap hit. 1 year left.
Man, I get that there's a lack of talent available right now, but that's not how I would want to spend my cap space. Terasenko had somewhere around 11 goals this past season, and when he doesn't score, he's not doing much else. It's not like he's good defensively or a forechecker or an effective playmaker. He's not scoring. He's not really helping you. And of course, the year before that, all right, he scored 20 plus, playing between, I believe it was Ottawa and then helping out Florida. But at that age, I would have wanted a bit of retention to take on his contract.
It's an interesting it's an interesting time right now with just no movement at all right now. Yeah, it's hard to disagree with you. I mean, this is just a one-dimensional player. I mean, I do wonder how he can look if he's playing on a top line, right? Like if he's playing on a second line that isn't in Detroit. We'll see. You never know. Like at the end of the day, let's also not forget that Terasenko is like a pure sniper. Like he's a gifted sniper. So you're hoping that you could get some stuff, but I don't know, man. Like this one for the Wild just seems weird because this is like, oh, we have Brock Besser at home, and it's like, what are you doing to make your winger depth better? Because like, let me look at what the Wild have in cap space.
Well, also you're willing to pay the 33-year-old version of Terasenko coming off an 11-goal season. You're willing to pay him 4.75, but Marco Rossi coming off a 60-point season, a second year in the league, 23 years old, you're not willing to pay him $7 million. It just doesn't. That's not how I would want to allocate my cap space.
They got 12.9 according to Puckpedia. But they still have some work to do. Like, they still have some stuff that they have to get done. Rossi's the interesting one. Okay, I want to can we revisit Rossi? Because yeah, it's been a lack of trades, and I think that's concerning. And we just kind of laid it out. Because again, you said it at the top that there hasn't been a ton of movement, but you also mentioned the Mammoth made a move. You also mentioned Vegas getting Mitch Marner. Like those are significant. Those matter. And I think it's worth mentioning that the Canucks just, I don't know, the Canucks seem like they've kind of missed the boat here. Like we'll see what ends up happening tomorrow, but I don't know. I don't know how you can look at it and not be at least a little concerned that they haven't done anything. Let's see what the people say. I want to talk about Rossi. We'll save that for anyone else. Let's see what the people say. Our poll question is a presentation of Pacific Toyota Dealers who want to tell you about the 100% electric Toyota BZ4X, an SUV packed with plenty of space. The BZ4X can handle any terrain and can take you from the city to the slopes. It's backed by the peace of mind that comes with knowing you're driving a Toyota, and if you're driving a BZ4X, you get access to HOV lanes even if you're driving alone. When you choose the BZ4X, you can get a $5,000 incentive, and now you can finance a 2025 BZ4X LE all-wheel drive from 0.99% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. All right, our poll question. Are you concerned by the Canucks' lack of trades heading into free agency? 60.3% of voters say yes. 39.7% say no. I am in the yes camp on this one.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily concerned about the timing of it hasn't happened yet, but more just looking at the state of the market. I'm concerned about their ability to meaningfully improve this offseason. I think they're in a spot where their forward group isn't going to level up the way that we were hoping they might once the season ended. And again, this is where they're almost going to have to treat a healthy Demko and a fingers crossed better version of Elias Pettersson as their internal upgrades to that has to be the source for major improvement for this team next season. Which, yes, those guys could bounce back, but in an ideal situation, you would have wanted those two levers and, all right, look at this really exciting top six edition and look at this center we got, because the combination of those things, especially with, all right, you've potentially got some prospects on the way this season as well. That's how you really shoot up the standings. Whereas I look at the Canucks now and I don't see a path for them being, let's say, a top 5 team in the Western Conference. I don't see a path for them being a team that can win playoff rounds next season. I
will say Demko. Demko can win a playoff round on his own.
Okay, when's the last time a goaltender stole a series? It barely happens. Stole a series. So I'm talking about team was significantly outplayed, and on paper, their forwards and defensemen were way weaker. This goalie stole the series.
But hang on a sec, and look,
Carey Price on Montreal's run during the COVID year. That's literally the last one I could think of, and that's 4 years ago.
Yes, thank you, Jacob. What I was gonna say is, like, how many teams do you look at and say, oh yeah, their defense core is better than what the Canucks are gonna have in the Western Conference?
Yeah, but go back to what I was talking about in the playoffs. I think forwards are the most important position.
Sure, but you just said
when you look at Edmonton, when you look at Dallas, when you look at Florida, when you look at those teams' forward groups, by far the best in the by far among the best in the NHL. Whereas when you look at their respective decors, I mean, Dallas made it to the Western Conference final despite with a decor that is very top heavy when Miro Heiskanen is healthy. And yet they made it there without Miro Heiskanen being there for most of the time. Edmonton made it there with a patchwork defense that didn't have Matthias Ekholm for large chunks of that stretch. And even when Ekholm came back, he was a shadow of his usual self. The Panthers, yes, their decor is solid, but that decor is always is greater than the sum of its parts. It's never been we got the most flashy players. They're able to just take defensemen and turn them into gold. So the Panthers' success wasn't defense for like their blue line first.
Sure.
And that's where, like, Vegas is a team. Look, Vegas is a good example, right? Vegas this past season had the one of the deepest decors in the NHL. Their forward group wasn't as strong, right? It was quite a bit of a drop off after Eichel and Stone. And we saw what happened to them in the playoffs. They got crushed by an Oilers team that had flaws on the blue line on paper, but their forward group had so many difference makers that it didn't matter. Like great D in goaltending, in my opinion, great D in goaltending is a recipe for winning like 15 years ago.
That's like, funny because it feels like,
and I'm not saying that those things don't matter. Yeah, I want to add nuance to my take, but it's like if you have great D, good goaltending, and you have one of the weakest forward groups of playoff teams, like that's the formula that gets you success like 10 to 15 years ago. And in my opinion, this is an offense first kind of league right now. And it's not to say defensive play doesn't matter, but you need that weaponry at the top of your lineup that can do serious offensive damage.
So are you telling me that the Canucks for years struggled to ice a competent blue line, and as soon as they have one, it doesn't matter? Is that what we're talking about here?
I'm not saying it doesn't matter. It's just that, all right, when they didn't have a competent decor, they at least had more weapons up front too, right? Like that, those teams in the past, you had Miller, Pettersson, Besser, Horvat, and it wasn't the deepest from top to bottom, but you at least had three great centers down the middle. Whereas, yeah, your decor is a lot better now, but your forward group is also worse than it was in the past. You don't have Miller, you don't have Horvat, you're probably losing Besser. You're hoping Pettersson bounces back, hoping. And so I can see the path for them making the playoffs, but I'm talking about if you want to win rounds in the postseason, you need a dynamic offense.
No disagreement there. I wanted to get some responses from the chat. Canuck Collector said, Sheilov stole the Calder Cup series finale. So take that, Harm.
We're clearly talking about the NHL.
Okay. Demko almost stole the series against Vegas in the bubble year. Almost. Okay. Nick Vocek, looking at the Canucks, he said, right now, best case scenario is that this is a 7th or 8th in the West team. Great D in goaltending, but they're going to struggle to score goals. Where else did I see something I wanted to read? Oh, yeah. This was from Calcio Rico. Need some unexpected guys to absolutely pop off and reach another level. Looking at Sherwood, looking at Carlson. I want to throw a name out there for you. Because Rick Dollywall tweeted this out, that he expects this is a guy that the Canucks will check in on. Tanner Jeannot adds toughness to the lineup. I like Tanner Jeannot to some extent, but I also think that's a prime example of a guy that in this market, like this free agent market, is A, going to get overpaid, and B, for this team, doesn't make a ton of sense. Like we've talked about it, they don't need bottom six forwards right now.
Yeah, look at his offensive numbers after that rookie year where he scored 24 goals.
Mm-hmm.
He had 18 points in 76 games in 2022-23, 14 points in 55 games in 2023-24, and then 13 points in 67 games this past season. He's a bottom six, physical, throw his weight around kind of guy. He's not going to add to this group offensively, and this team already has a glut of bottom six forwards.
Not going to disagree. I was hoping you'd have something beyond what I was saying about it not making a ton of sense. But, okay, what does Tanner Jeannot get on July 1? Let's explore this real quick. What does Tanner Jeannot really get on July 1? I think it's probably too much money.
Maybe, but he's coming off a $2.66 million cap hit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more curious to see what term does he get. I don't think he's going to get paid a huge cap hit because he just hasn't scored enough to justify that, but it's going to be the term, right? Is he able to cash in Miles Wood style, where Wood got 6 years a couple of years ago from Colorado? Or are teams going to be more conservative and only offer him 2 or 3 years?
Okay, any other takes you want to throw out there before we get to anyone else? Just on Canucks free agency, the lack of trades, anything? Give me your prediction. What happens tomorrow? Give me your prediction. I already told you. Mine's Mikael Granlund, 4 years, $6 million.
I don't have a prediction. I don't have a sort of idea on what exactly they're going to do. I mean, I don't know. This is the position they're in where there isn't a silver bullet. This is what they should do. This is the
I
answer.
didn't say tell me. I don't want them to sign Mikael Granlund. I'm telling you, I'm predicting that's what's going to happen tomorrow, and I don't want them to do that. I don't think that's a smart move. I'll be here tomorrow, not same time tomorrow. Tuesday, July 1st, we're going to have a show sometime in the afternoon, 3 or 4 p.m. likely, with how busy July 1 gets. 3 or 4 p.m. we'll do a show. And I'm just saying, my prediction is that they're going to sign Mikael Granlund.
All right, my prediction is I guess more that they'll kick around on the Roslovic kind of tier of free agent, like just below that Granlund, and we'll see what comes of that. One thing I will, because we've touched on a lot of, I think, glass half empty perspectives.
We have.
One thing I will credit them for, which they took some flack for it at the time, was when they traded that pick, the Rangers one, for Marcus Pettersson and then immediately re-upped him. That Marcus Pettersson contract looks pretty damn good right now, especially when you see Nick Hague. Hague got a $5.5 million cap hit when he was averaging 17 minutes a night last year in Vegas. Hague, he's 6'6" and has some potential. I look at Hague as a 4-5 defenseman, and he's getting $5.5 million. Marcus Pettersson, Canucks being able to lock him up at that number, that's a nice contract to have on the books. And
now, not to make it glass half empty again, but now what does Pius Suter look like if you did the $3 million cap hit with him? What does Brock Besser look like if you did it right after that 40-goal season and just said, okay, you know what, we're going to bite the bullet, we're going to give you your 8-year contract or your 7-year contract, whatever, your long-term contract that you want at $7.5 million. Like, what's Brock Besser going to get tomorrow? Besser's maybe a worse example because the numbers I just threw out, there's definitely people, myself included actually, that are probably going to say, I don't like that deal. The Canucks shouldn't sign that. But Suter's the big one that you look at it and say, okay, they got ahead of it with Pettersson, with Marcus Pettersson. Obviously, that's a great looking deal, but kind of missed it on Pius Suter.
Well, I think if management had the hindsight of knowing what they know now, they probably would have
for sure
done that. But they just didn't foresee the market being this lopsided in terms of how difficult it is to acquire top 6 forwards. And I'll be honest, there was part of me that thought, all right, it might not be easy to land the players that you want, but I didn't think it was going to be this difficult.
Yeah,
I didn't foresee it being this lopsided, and I think a lot of teams are in a similar boat. So yeah, you're right, but it's also kind of hindsight to talk about it that way.
That's fair. Did you have any other glass half full stuff you want to throw out there?
Not for now. I mean, as we preview, once the dust settles on what they do, there will be other big picture glass half full takes we can throw around, but I think that's it for now.
Excellent. Okay. Anyone else is brought to you by the Vancouver Canadians. Head on down to the Nats Tuesday, July 1st. It is a 1:05 p.m. first pitch against the Everett Aqua Sox. And I'll tell you this about baseball. This is something interesting that a lot of people don't know. You know how hockey, it's like, 7 o'clock, Canucks Rangers, and then it's like, just kidding, puck's actually dropping at 7:16. Baseball, there's a reason that it's 1:05. Like, that is when the first pitch will land in the catcher's mitt. Did you know this, Harm? No. I know Jacob knows this. Yeah, MLB, every level. This is a thing. It's like, no, we're going to be on time. Warm-ups have to be done. This has to be done. The ball needs to be in the catcher's mitt at 1:05 p.m. for the first pitch of the game. Baseball games are never late, ever. Well, rain delays and stuff. But no, like 1:05 p.m., it's not like, be there at 1:05 and then we're going to start doing all this other stuff that we like to do and then it's going to be 1:20. Like, no, the anthems are at 12:50 or whenever because we told everyone that the first pitch was going to be at 1:05. And it is. It's at 1:05 every time. They have it down to a science. And that is something that people should keep in mind when they're going to Canadians games. It's always a good time at that. Tuesday, July 1st, come celebrate Canada Day. Bucket hat giveaway. For tickets, call 604-872-5232 or check out canadiansbaseball.com. Okay, some news from around the league over the weekend. Word breaks that the Maple Leafs are going to be trading Mitch Marner, the rights to Mitch Marner, in a sign and trade to the Vegas Golden Knights. Of course, that would allow the Leafs to sign Marner to an 8-year deal and then immediately trade that deal to the Vegas Golden Knights, similar to what we saw with Matthew Tkachuk and the Calgary Flames when they did that trade with the Florida Panthers. Now, that's a really interesting one because for a couple of reasons. The first one being, oh, okay, Mitch Marner to the Vegas Golden Knights. That makes sense. And especially with the news that 8-year deals aren't going to be allowed in the next CBA, Mitch Marner is going to be in a group of players that signs one of the final 8-year deals ever, if this happens. Now, it hasn't happened yet, and it would be Nicholas Waugh going back the other way. And look, that's great value for the Leafs to get if that actually happens. That was the original rumor, was that Nicholas Waugh was going back, and that's great value for an expiring asset. Getting that for Mitch Marner is like Brad Treliving GM of the year if that happens. Like that's a big deal. That's a really, really good trade for them. Again, an expiring asset, a guy that you're going to get, you're a day away from getting nothing for. If you get Nicholas Waugh for that guy, kudos to you. But that didn't happen. What ended up happening was Elliot Friedman reporting that there could be some tampering involved if Vegas signs Mitch Marner on July 1st. The direct quote from Elliot is that the league is itching to make an example of somebody for all this. And we talk about it every year, how it's like, oh, miraculously, they were able to start talking at 9 a.m. July 1st, and the deal got done at 9:03. Wow, it took 3 minutes to figure out all of this stuff with the deal. That amazing. So the league's itching to go after someone for tampering, apparently. Now, if you couldn't catch that part of the story that raises some eyebrows, this sure sounds like extortion from the Leafs, right? Like, it's like, trade us Nicholas Waugh, or we're going to go after you for tampering.
Oh, yeah. And the truth is, every team does this, and agents are complicit in this as well. If you're the league and you want to punish people, you got to go after the agents too, because they represent many different clients, and the combine is the perfect sort of, that's when the first seeds are kind of planted. Because I mean, I've been to the combine in Buffalo 2 years ago, and agents are meeting with teams all the time, and of course they have their own. If I'm, let's say, Pat Brisson, and I'm meeting with, let's say, the Sabres GM, because I've got one or two Sabres RFAs or one or two Sabres pending UFAs. That's great, but then I also have other clients that maybe Buffalo's interested in, that, you know, you have some conversations, right? And that happens just across the board with everybody. So for the league to sort of clamp down and make an example of one team, I think is a little bit unfair. Yeah, we'll see. I'm also curious, even if they go through and it's proven that the Golden Knights were tampering, how harshly are they actually going to be punished? Mm-hmm. Because the rules are, you can punish them pretty significantly. It's not just fines. You can forfeit and forfeiting draft picks, you can void the contract that was signed. The player involved can be suspended. Like, this could open up a massive can of worms, and yeah, I'm just really curious to see where this goes.
I'm just imagining as Mitch Marner thought he was getting the last laugh with the Leafs. The Leafs like, actually, we're gonna make sure you get suspended for this. This is ridiculous. Yeah, this is gonna be an interesting one to follow. But yeah, that sure sounds like extortion to me. Give us Nicholas Waugh, or you're getting tampering allegations against you. Now, the other thing that's important to mention as well, Elliot said he has no reason to believe that Vegas is guilty of anything. So I want to make sure we mention that as well as we talk about this.
Yeah, it's just a coincidence that every other insider has been like, yeah, Vegas is going to be the spot for Marner. I mean, of course, there was some tampering involved, but of course, every team sort of does it. Waugh, by the way, if he doesn't go to Toronto as part of this potential sign and trade, he's actually one of the players that is really high up my targets board. Again, Vegas, if they're trying to clear cap space for a Marner run, need to sort of ship a player or two out. They've already shipped a Haig out as a contract that they would have needed to pay. And wow, I look at him, right shot. He can play center, he can play wing, but more importantly, he's a natural center. And here's a guy that's been in the 30 to 40 point range, around a half a point per game guy, pretty much only playing in Vegas's bottom six. And I look at his skill set. He's 6'4", he plays with edge, but I've also watched him play, and his hands are underrated. He's a silky puck handler. He can drive zone entries. He's got skill. He's not just a big, hard to play against. He's got edge kind of player. And $3 million cap hit, I think, is totally reasonable. You have him signed through 2026, 27. And I think there might be some upside there. There was a stretch, I want to say in the 2023-24 season when Eichel got injured. Waugh got bumped into a top six center role for about 6 weeks or so, and he was close to a point per game. So I've always looked at him as he's a middle six center with some upside. And again, it's not just middle six and he can put up points, but 6'4" gives you that size that you want as well for a smaller forward group, especially as the market kind of dwindles down. He's a guy that I've liked for a really long time.
Nicholas Waugh has 3 fewer career playoff goals than Mitch Marner. He's played 9 more games, but 3 fewer playoff goals than Mitch Marner. So just something to consider. Something to consider there. You could do a lot worse for an expiring asset. Like I said, that's a good one for Toronto if that happens. Okay. There's other stuff around the league that I wanted to get to. Here we go. Okay, the Canucks officially announcing that Arshdeep Bains has been signed to a 2-year contract. Again, we talked about that earlier in the show. Now it is official. Bains back on a 2-year deal. There was something else that around the league that I wanted to mention. Where did it go? I can't remember.
The Michelli thing?
No, not really. Like, I like Michelli a lot. I really, really do like Matias Michelli. I've had him third on my Calder ballot in his rookie year, I think. I think he's a really sneaky good player. But, okay, I can't find it. That's okay. That's okay. I'm literally scrolling Daily Faceoff to see if... Oh, yeah, Morgan Geekie. I want to talk about this. There it is. Okay. Also, old friend of the show, Jack Rathbone signs a 2-year contract extension with the Buffalo Sabres. Shout out to Jack, our boy. But yeah, I want to talk about this. Morgan Geekie gets a 6-year, $33 million contract extension. I tweeted this out again. I said, wow, P.S. Suter at $4.5 million, looking pretty damn good right now. Because again, this is a $5.5 million annual average value for Morgan Geekie. And people are like, Morgan Geekie scored 33 goals last year. We've had the Morgan Geekie conversation. We were talking about him as a potential trade target for the Canucks. That was a career year for Morgan Geekie, and his baseline game is nowhere near where P.S. Suter's is.
I shouldn't say no. You shouldn't say nowhere near.
No, it is. It's nowhere near. He doesn't bring anything defensively. He doesn't kill penalties like Suter does. He doesn't have the versatility Suter does, and he definitely doesn't. He doesn't have the same defensive game that Suter does. And again, Suter scores 15 goals every season of his NHL career, except for this one when he scored 25. Geekie scored 17 last year with the Bruins. This past season, he scored 33. But before that, it was just bleak.
But before that, he was also buried on a fourth line.
Yeah, okay, sure.
I think his floor is as a 15-ish goal guy. He's got him and Suter have a similar floor offensively. You could argue Suter's a little bit better defensively for sure. But Geekie's versatile too. I mean, he can play up and down the lineup. He's proven it. He can provide value in a third line role. He can in a complementary role for playing alongside David Pastrnak can make it work. It's a hefty bet for sure. It's not a contract I necessarily love. But the Bruins are also, it's one that I shrug my shoulders at because the Bruins are so thin on impact wingers that you've got to bring, you need to have some talent on your team. And it's the term more that I don't like.
Yeah, that's
$5.5 million cap hit is steep, but I can live with it in a rising cap climate, especially if your thought process is, okay, we're just going to staple him to Pastrnak moving forward. But the 6 years of term is is where it gets dicey. And I know Geeky is on the younger side where he's going to turn 27 in less than a month. So it's not as if he's 30 or 31 years old, but 6 years of term is still a lot. And you're really banking on this 1 year of chemistry that they had lasting for another 6 years.
Okay. Canucks officially announced the Sassin deal. 1 year, 775,000. Almost said million. That would have been great. Guillaume Brisebois has been re-upped on a 1 year two-way contract. It's a 2-year contract for Aatu Ratu at 775,000. Now, I will say this as well, okay? I would think that these cap hits of 775,000, I think these are both one-way deals. Now, the reason that this matters is because these players could take up more on the Canucks salary cap, but because they're getting paid the same amount, they would agree to a lower AAV. Do you think I'm cooking here?
Yeah, that would make sense to me.
And to do that, I'll say this, you have to have buy-in from ownership to do that. Because if ownership could say, like, and the fluctuation is very different. Like, you're talking, what do these guys get paid? Like 82,000, I think.
Well, that's the minimum.
That's the minimum in the minors. That's what these guys were getting paid last year. But again, say it was a $900,000 cap hit, but you get paid $200,000 in the minors. That's savings for ownership if these guys aren't in the NHL. But these are one-way deals. That you have to get ownership buy-in to do that. So I want to make sure I mentioned that. But yeah, 2-year contract for Aatu Ratu, 1-year contract for Max Sassin, and Alex Romanov has been re-upped on an 8-year deal. Where did it go? 8-year extension at $6.25 million with the Islanders. Your thoughts on that one, the Romanov one from Elliot Friedman?
I like it a lot more than Nick Hague. I'll say that. Romanov took a lot of steps in Long Island, really rounding out his game. He played well in the Isles top 4. I'm curious who his D partner is going to be because he spent a large chunk of the last 2 years with Dobson, and Dobson obviously wasn't at his best this past season, but he did a lot of things as a puck mover and offensively that made things work with Romanov when they did play together. So it makes sense. I think the Isles will be happy with that cap hit. It's ultra long term, and there was of course some chatter that all right they may consider listening to him, but after they moved Dobson, they weren't gonna trade both guys.
I did also want to mention, I said this earlier that we have a morning show, so there's going to be fewer people on the YouTube live show. Another really strong day. A lot of people watching us on YouTube right now and on Twitter. We appreciate it. I do want to mention this. The Family Feud survey is out. We got it out today. I'm back playing the game. Jacob's back making the survey. Make sure you get your responses in. You can find it in the description on podcast and on YouTube as well. Okay. Anything else you wanted to get in, Harm?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right, let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day and close this out. We'll be back tomorrow, folks. Like I said, it's free agency day, so really busy morning for us, but we're going to be back in the afternoon. We'll have a recap of all of the Canucks work on day 1 of free agency. Okay, let's go to the line's just too high. Okay, you know what? We're going to go with Mad Max. Max Scherzer is taking the bump for the Jays today. You can get Max Scherzer over 5.5 total strikeouts at minus 130 odds against the New York Yankees. Max Scherzer on the bump for the Jays. You can get that at Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get it on the game. Use the code NATION at Bet365. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. All right, we'll wrap it up there, folks. For my co-host, Harmon Dial, and our technical producer, Jacob Lazar, my name is Dave Wajelli. Thanks so much for this episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.